Our series is regarding creation evolution. However, this morning I want to change direction just a little bit, and we're going to be in Psalm chapter 19. Psalm 19 is the text that we're using for a base for this entire lesson. The heavens declare the glory of God. Psalm 19 is divided into two halves or two portions. We might call them two different books from which we can learn about God. Number one, the book of the world. Or number two, the book of the Word. The book of the world, that is, the creation that God has made, or the Word of God, verses 7 and following. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. So these are the two books from which we learn of God. So let's look at 19, beginning in verse 1. The heavens declare the glory of God. The firmament shows His handiwork. Day after day utters speech. Night unto night shows knowledge. There is no speech. There's no language. The voice is not heard. And yet their message has gone throughout all of the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them He has set a tabernacle for the sun, which comes out like a bridegroom leaving his chamber, and like a strong man running his course with joy. Its rising is from the ends of the earth, and its circuit, or the setting, is to the end of them. And there's nothing that is hidden from its heat. What a beautiful psalm speaking about the glory of God. The heavens declare the glory of God. The firmament shows His handiwork. It is interesting to note that the word cosmos is what is utilized most frequently in the New Testament as well as the Old Testament Greek text. Cosmos meaning created order. Carl Sagan was probably the most famous astronomer in the world until several years ago when he passed away. He had, however, a television program called Cosmos. And in that program, he would say, very bluntly and boldly, the cosmos is all that there is and all that ever will be. A basic statement denying God's existence. What is fascinating and ironic is the word cosmos means order, even precise order. Yet he was saying there is no one who gave it that order. There is no orderer. There is no designer. We have design, but no designer. We have order, but no orderer. We have precision with mathematical exactness, but no one worked it out. It just happens that way. It takes blindness to go in that direction. So we have in Romans chapter 1, Paul telling us very plainly the same thing we have in Psalm 19 and verse 1, where he tells us the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hinder the truth in unrighteousness, because that which is known of God is manifest in them, for God manifested it unto them. Now listen to this. For the invisible things of Him, since the creation of the world, are clearly seen, being perceived through the things that are made, even His everlasting power and divinity, that they may be without excuse. Because that knowing God, they glorified Him not as God, neither gave thanks, but became vain in the reasonings. The senseless heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the incorruptible God for the likeness of an image of corruptible man, birds, four-footed beasts, and creeping things. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows His handiwork. His handiwork literally is the work of His hands. God's hands, the firmament, that is the expanse, shows the work of His hands. Day after day it utters speech. Night after night shows knowledge. I like what Brother Clinton had to say a few moments ago. Sometimes in songs, and here's a psalm, it is best just to stop, listen, stand under the starry heavens and listen. The voice is not heard. You don't hear the language, but the meaning goes into all the earth and the words into the end of the world. That's verse 4. In them He has set a tabernacle for the sun. That is the expanse. And from the human viewpoint, he comes out like a bridegroom out of his chamber. And as a strong man, he runs its course with joy. Think about the regularity of that course. It's actually the earth in its course. And its rising is from the end of the heavens, its setting is to the circuit of them, and there's nothing hidden from its heat. Everyone is exposed to the book of the world, and that is the created heavens, declaring the glory of God. So let's think about, as we gaze into the heavens this morning for just a few moments, thinking about the declaration that the heavens and the heavenly bodies make pertaining to God's awesome power and His glory as we explore this particular psalm. Let's begin at home. We'll begin with the earth. The earth, the third planet from the sun, Mercury, Venus, planet Earth. The earth, as we know, turns on its axis every 24 hours. That's the rotation. Then we have one revolution around the sun, 365 days. Think about the mathematical precision with which that is done. Now, this earth, as it continues to track around the sun, always exactly so. We have astronomical clocks that are set to the exactness of the earth's movements. Isn't that interesting? Not only so, but it is the only planet that is habitable by mankind. Let's go one planet closer, Venus. Venus has a surface temperature of about 700 to 900 degrees. Not a place that is conducive to life, besides no water. We go one planet away, Mars, the red planet, same thing. There is no water there. There's only dry ice. The atmosphere, CO2, not conducive to life at all. There's nothing in the entire created universe that is conducive to life except planet Earth. That's how God has made it. And He put us on a track where the regularity of nature shows His power. Think about this. Every chronometer that we have is natural. God has made it natural, such as, what I mean by that is, one revolution around the sun is 365 days, 1 year. One twisting on its axis, 24 hours, that's night and day. That's how God created in Genesis chapter 1. The earth tilts 23.5 degrees on its axis, and that makes different hemispheres in different relationship to the sun, that is closer or further from the sun. That creates our seasons. The moon circuits the earth one time in 27.5 days. That creates our month. What is it that creates the week? There's nothing except Exodus chapter 20 and verse 11. For in 6 days God created the heavens and the earth and all that is in them, and He rested on the seventh day. Those are literal 24-hour days. Any compromise with this creation account so as to want to inject billions or millions of years between Genesis 1 and 2, the gap theory, or the day-age theory, falls short of the plain, simple testimony of Scripture. We have our week is the only time frame that is not managed by natural law. God set it up at the beginning because that's the creation week, Sunday through Saturday. So the sun, we revolve around the sun. We had Venus. We've talked about Mars. I want you to think about this also. Think about the regularity of this revolution and how mechanically, mathematically precise it is for just a moment. If you were to go onto the driveway of your house and you were to explode a firecracker out there, the explosive pattern would be somewhat regular, but it would be haphazard, wouldn't it? But it would be regular. It's just you can tell, and those investigators can tell where the explosion actually occurred by the pattern of it. I want you to think about this, however, regarding the earth. Many tell us that which created the earth is the Big Bang. Big explosion. Let's see for just a moment. Do you know that the planet Venus, for example, rotates in a retrograde fashion, that is, opposite to the Earth? We're spinning this way, it's spinning this way. How does that happen? Astronomers and naturalists say they have trouble explaining how they would spin different directions. Not only that, but Jupiter, further out from us in the solar system, Jupiter has about 900 different moons. They used to say about 12. Now they say about 900 different moons. Some of the moons are tracking this way, and some of the moons are tracking this way. How did that occur? It didn't occur because of the Big Bang. It was the creative energy of God who created it with a plan and a purpose. He created all in 6 literal days. There's the earth. Let's think about something else. And by the way, here's one other note that we need to make. According to Sir Isaac Newton, it has become now a law of motion, and that is that nothing that is a stable object can move except it is acted upon by force of something greater, equal to or greater than itself. What was the first cause of all of this perfect circular motion? What's the first cause? It only speaks of one thing, one person, that is God. Let's go out further just a little bit. That is the moon. The moon, as we mentioned a moment ago, tracks around the earth 27.5 days. But here's something else interesting. The moon rotates on its own axis. But the rotation takes 27.5 days. That means that we only see one face of the moon. It's not that it's not there, and it does move and rotates, but we can never see it, so we call it, of course, the dark side of the moon. How did that occur? Here's something more. Back in 1960, I believe it's 69, we all probably watched Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon. Remember that? I believe it's in July of that year, set foot on the moon. I remember where I was, what I was doing, just as I remember 9/11, what I was doing, where I was. I remember exactly what happened. Before that, however, there had been many books published by astronomers, naturalists all, who suggested that the amount of dust on the moon would be 75 to 80 feet thick, and they were afraid of landing any module on the moon or anybody stepping onto the moon because of that thickness of the dust. So let's say, for example, that you have a visitor. Brother Joe's our visitor this week. Let's say he comes into the house and he takes his finger and he runs it across the coffee table, and there's an 1/8 inch of dust on that coffee table. Now, Nita is going to be horrified, number one. An 1/8 inch of dust. Now, he's going to say, how long has it been since she cleaned this house, or since the house was clean? Now, there are going to be some variables, some things understood, such as, did we start with a clean table, number one, and did anybody come in and just sprinkle dust, maliciously on it, like Bill, come in here and sprinkle dust, make it look like that? Taking those out of account, 1/8 of an inch of a dust would mean about how long has it been since she's cleaned this house? So therefore, astronomers would say, since the earth is 4.5 billion years old and the universe is 14.6 billion years old, we're going to anticipate about 75 to 80 feet thick of dust on the moon. And Bob Hope had a show in which Neil Armstrong, before he went to the moon, he asked him, what are you going to do about stepping in the dust? And it's going to be buried in the dust because it's so thick. That is the uniformitarian, the naturalist assumption. What happened? Just very small, very little. Why? Because the universe is much younger than they want to portray. That's why. 14.5 billion years worth of dust was not on the moon. Neither was 4.5 billion years worth of dust. Moon dust shows the youth of the entire universe and the entire solar system. Let's go to the sun for just a moment. The sun has a surface temperature of about 10,000 degrees. The inner core of the sun has 27 million degrees. It is a controlled hydrogen bomb, hydrogen and helium. And the hydrogen and helium acting together gives us the energy that is produced from the sun. The sun is 400 times distant than is the moon. The moon is only 240,000 miles from the earth. The sun is 93 million miles from the earth. 93 million miles. If the sun were a hollow ball, one could fit 1 million Earths within it. That's how large the sun is compared to the earth. It's actually a star. Now, here's something else, an interesting fact regarding it. Think about the mechanical precision that God has created. The earth orbits the sun in an elliptical orbital track, an ellipsis. It's not a perfect circle, it's an ellipsis. The earth itself, by the way, I can never look at that picture or a picture like that and not think about Job 26. Can you? That he gives us the expanse in the north and hangs the earth upon nothing. Nothing. And there it is, just sitting out there. But the earth in its track, in this elliptical track, it adjusts itself every 18 miles. It adjusts itself 1/9 of an inch. Moves in just a little bit because it's an elliptical track. 1/9 of an inch. If it were to adjust itself 1/8 of an inch, it would over time gradually draw closer to the sun. We would be all incinerated. If it were adjusting itself 1/10 of an inch, we would be gradually drifting away from the sun and we would all freeze to death. But the earth adjusts itself, so to speak, every 18 miles, 1/9 of an inch. I ask the question, how can anyone coming to these facts conclude that this is haphazard, simply an explosion, a naturalistic explosion? How can anyone suppose such a thing? It's absolutely fabulous to think about the mechanical precision with which all the universe operates. And all of the planets are on the same system. There are 8 planets. They used to say 9. Pluto has been downgraded, no longer a planet. It's simply a rocky ice ball of the outer skirts of the planets, but that's our solar system. So now let's think about this for just a moment. Let's go to the stars. The nearest star is Alpha Centauri. Alpha Centauri is actually a double star, and here are the 2 stars, Alpha Centauri. We have called it one because it appears with telescopes even, that is light magnitude telescopes, it appears as one star, but it's actually a double star, and it twists or they rotate every 80 years and they come back to the same position every 80 years. Alpha Centauri is 4.2 light years from the Earth. It's not in our solar system, but it is in the Milky Way galaxy. It's in the galaxy, but it's not in the solar system. 4.2 light years away. How far is a light year? It's hard for me to fathom. And light travels at the speed of 186,000 miles per second. How many seconds in a minute? 60. So we take 186,000 by 60. That's how far light travels in 1 minute. How many minutes in an hour? 60. Multiply that by 60. How many hours in a day? 24. Multiply that by 24. How many days in a year? 365. Multiply all that out, whatever the number is, that's 1 light year. Alpha Centauri is the nearest star to the Earth, period. And it is 4.2 light years away. It is, however, 125 times brighter than the sun and 40 times larger than. To get an idea of the model, think about this. Let's suppose right now that this period in my Bible right here is the sun. And the solar system revolves around it. That would be so minuscule you can't even see it. I can't see it now. I don't have my glasses, and you can't see it from your seat. That's the solar system right here. Where are we going to place Alpha Centauri? You're going to have to go to 287, all the way a half a mile away, 287. That's where you're going to have to place Alpha Centauri, if that's the model, that's the scale model. That's absolutely stunning, isn't it? To think how that God had created it all. Let's think about our galaxy for just a moment. The Milky Way galaxy. That's the galaxy in which we are. The Milky Way galaxy itself has, Bruce had mentioned the number of stars, but astronomers say between 200 billion to 400 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy alone. This is not the only galaxy. And here's what Psalm 147, verse 4 tells us. God knows each of them by name. Everyone by name. In the Milky Way galaxy, the stars that we see, they classify them according to, number one, magnitude. They classify them according to distance. They classify them according to size. And other classifications as well. But think about the magnitude. What does magnitude mean? Magnitude is how bright the star is. So the lower the number on the scale, the brighter the star is. So a star that has 1 magnitude is a very bright star. Some of them are in the negative side, -2, -3. That's so bright. But as you move up the scale, 10, 11, 12, then they become very hard to see with the naked eye. And then when you get to 15, you can't see them. So that's the magnitude of the stars. So let's think about the magnitude for just a moment. And here's one star, and that is Aldebaran. Aldebaran is a big red giant star in the center of, which is really the eye of the constellation Taurus. And you can see how to find it in relationship to Orion. Orion has the belt, the 3 stars on the belt. Draw a line straight up, and you can see Aldebaran. Aldebaran is this red giant star. It is 65 light years away. 65. Hard to imagine. I can't even fathom such distances. 65 light years away. It is 40 times larger than the sun. The energy it puts out is so tremendous. And so we have a picture here. How large is the sun compared to Aldebaran? If we can fit 1 million Earths in the sun, how many suns can we fit in Aldebaran? I don't know, probably about 1 million again. It's so vast, and yet God created it all just like this. He created it. And here it is in the constellation Taurus. By the way, sometimes the distances are so far that light years don't even really measure it very well, because so astronomers use parsecs, P-A-R-S-E-C, parsec. A parsec is 3.26 light years, 1 parsec, so they measure it in parsecs. So vast are the distances. Let's think about another one. This is Antares. Antares is once again a giant, red giant star. Antares is the heart of Scorpius. That's constellation on the right of the screen is Scorpius. And in the bottom of Scorpius, that's the heart. Scorpius has the heart down toward the bottom. Scorpius, the heart, Antares, is 600 light years away from the Earth. And it is 700 times larger than the sun. But there it is, and it sits the same place every night, declaring the glory of God. Remarkable, isn't it? Let's look at another one very quickly. After Antares, you might think about Betelgeuse, which is on the right shoulder, with the bottom shoulder of Orion. Orion is, or I should say Betelgeuse, that star, it's a giant, red giant star, 764 light years from the Earth. Rigel, which is on the bottom right, or it's actually on the bottom skirt of Orion's skirt, is about the same, 764 light years away. Now, what is the point of all of this? I want you to think about the mathematical precision with which all of this is counted and with which we are able to even set clocks. Do you know that we can set, and we have astronomical clocks? How can we be so precise with it? Astronomical clocks are precise, exactly so. We can count on it, everything exactly the same way tomorrow as it is today. How is that the case? Because it was designed by a great designer, God. That's why. There is a passage, two passages actually, but one of them specifically to which I want to call your attention, Job 38. In Job 38, verses 35 and following, Job, remember, has questioned God about why suffering? Why is it that I'm in pain? Why the infliction of all the difficulties I have here? And God asks him a series of questions. He asks him regarding the animal kingdom. And he also asks him in Job 38, verse 33, regarding astronomy. And he tells us this very simply. He says, Job 38, he said, ask him first of all if he can loose the bands of Orion. That is, Orion is sitting in the sky and is almost as if he's bound there. And then he makes this comment. He says, can you figure the laws by which these are governed? And the word that he uses is government. There's a government that manages the star or the starry heavens. And he uses the word government. Can you tell me about the government by which these things sit in their place in the heavens? Interestingly, no, we cannot. Astronomers cannot either. That's why astronomers, when they come to retrograde planets, retrograde moons, they say we don't understand why it's the case, because it does not fit a Big Bang theory. Can you tell about the government of the stars? No, Job cannot and I cannot either, but God can, because God is the one who governs them. Think about how vast the distances are. Now let's go back to Psalms 8, verses 3 and 4. David, a shepherd boy, outside under the starry heavens on a continual basis, and he reflected this way: when I consider the heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars which you have made, what is man that you're mindful of him, and the Son of Man that you visit him? Isn't it a glorious thought beyond speech to recognize not only the vastness of the universe and the glory of it, but that God loves man and he sees me and he offers me salvation? Isn't that the most glorious, wonderful, magnificent thought? That the God who made all of this, what is man that you're mindful of him, or the Son of Man that you visit him? But he has in Jesus Christ, his Son. Man is the only creature that has been created with or in the image of God, which means, of course, free will, rational capacity, moral sensibility. We're made in the image of God, and we are to reflect on these and come to God. What is man that you are mindful of him, the Son of Man that you visit him? He has, however, isn't it wonderful that a great loving God like that, a great God who created the entire universe, can see me and assist you? The lesson is yours. The invitation is that you respond to the gospel, which is faith, repentance, baptism into Christ. God put you into the family. God who made all of this can do anything, and he put you into his family upon your obedience to the gospel of Jesus Christ. He sees us. He wants us to respond. Right now, while we stand and sing, if you're subject to the invitation.